Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! Who the fuck is that guy?
I love you! My balls are hot.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Well, I'm back. This is episode 40 of Across the Cage. My name is Stefan. Different setup today. A little bit of a different setup. I'll address, I think first and foremost, the elephant in the room. Obviously, there's been a couple of changes that have taken place. We obviously had the week off last week. And I'll be transparent and honest with you guys. I think myself and Mark had two different views of where we wanted to take the podcast. And at this moment in time, we decided that it was probably best for us to, I guess, both venture off into our own paths. And, you know, I thank Mark for everything that he's done for the podcast up until this week. You know, he was absolutely critical for the launch of Across the Cage. And, you know, I thank him for everything that he's done. And, you know, I want this to evolve into something so crazy and amazing. You know, it did start off as a bit of an idea and a little bit of a, you know, something different and something that I've never done before. But you know what? We've gotten it to where it is now. We've got a pretty decent fan base, and you know, we can only get better from here. So moving forward, will just be myself doing it, and the Mystic Cat. The Mystic Cat will join us. I'll explain that a little bit more on Thursday, but you know, the Mystic Matt, I guess you can say the Mystic Cat, has come in and subbed out Mark. So no. But yeah, that's that. I'll address that now. So I'm back. Thank you for asking how I am. I'm really well. Thank you very much. It was weird not recording last week. It was extremely weird. You know, there was, especially after, I guess, notably one of the best and biggest fight cards of the year so far, and there was so much to talk about away from that, and it was a bit weird not talking about it straight after. So I guess I'll dive straight into it now. I think when you talk about, I'll talk about the main event mainly, with DC obviously losing via TKO to Stipe Miocic and losing his title, and Stipe regaining his championship. Look, all you can say about Stipe is that he is the most decorated, on paper, statistically, the greatest UFC heavyweight champion of all time. There's no questions asked. There's no arguments there from me or I think anybody else that Stipe is the greatest UFC heavyweight champion of all time on paper, right? There's an argument in there that in his prime, you know, Cain Velasquez was up there, Frank Mir was up there, but statistically speaking, Stipe is the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. I don't think DC gave enough respect to Stipe. I think going into the fight, talking about, you know, going in there and Stipe hasn't learned. You know, he's not going to be prepared for what I have. It's going to go down the exact same way as it has before, and it showed when I think the turning point in the actual fight was that third round where DC were landing those punches and Stipe wasn't going away. I think that DC had no answer, and previously Mark and I have sort of discussed that, you know, in fights, the champions and the fighters that are the upper echelon of fighters adapt mid-fight. And Stipe did that. He did that mid-fight. He adapted. He started landing those body shots, and that's ultimately what got him the win. And I think the game plan, and even DC's corner, they were telling him, you know, stick to the game plan. And DC was kind of all over the place. Oh, did I win that round? I'm up this round. How did I go there? You know, and his game plan wasn't walking forward and playing into Stipe's hands. It was to, you know, grapple him, wrestle him, you know, try and shut him out, tire him out over the 5 rounds. And he was winning that fight. But didn't give enough respect to Stipe. So now he's the world champion. What's next for DC? Look, he came out obviously with an apology. I don't think he owes anybody an apology. A fight's a fight. He's done enough for this sport to not apologize for anything. So he doesn't owe anybody an apology. I would not have an issue if he stepped away from the sport. I would have no problems at all if he called his retirement and said, you know what, I'm done. I've done my time. You know, he is one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. And I would have no issue if he walked away, right? But in saying that, how can you not want to see him in there again? How can you not want either a Stipe in the third fight, or even still John Jones 3 at light heavyweight? I think if he comes back, drops down to light heavyweight, which I don't think would personally happen, but you know, in fantasy MMA world, I think, you know, I would love it to happen. But if DC was to come back in and take on John Jones at light heavyweight and beat John Jones at light heavyweight, I think that cements his legacy. I think that's more of a legacy fight for him, to get that one up over him. And even though he's 0-2 against John Jones, just getting that one, that's like a moral victory for him, will mean more than the two losses, I think. And then you had in the co-main event, Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis, and I was a little bit confused with Anthony Pettis' game plan, because he got gassed not doing Anthony Pettis things. During that second round, he just didn't have an answer for Nate. And Nate, as you know, he's a cardio freak. He's always known, especially in his last couple of fights, to go that 5 rounds, to go the distance. And I just think on the night, Nate Diaz was just so much better than Anthony Pettis. You know, people criticize Anthony Pettis for not being that fighter that steps up. You know, he cracks under pressure, and he kind of proved all those people right at UFC 241. And for Nate, man, the sky's the limit for Nate at the moment. He's slowly turning into the A side. There are so many opportunities for him. There are so many big fights out there for him, and I think he's turned into, you know, a big pay-per-view draw. If he's given the right fight, if he has gold around his waist, that's a different story altogether. Now, what weight division will we get gold at? Who knows? I think that 170-pound division suits him really well. I think if, depending on how Colby versus Usman plays out, I think he should be in line for that fight. I know that he was calling out Jorge Masvidal, and you know, Masvidal was you know, open to it. But I would much rather see him chase the gold. Then it's just the opportunities with him with gold around his waist, absolutely endless. So it was good to see him back fighting. Good to see him back fighting well, and hopefully he now stays consistent. Hopefully we see him fit and healthy, and fighting, you know, pushing it for 3 times a year. But that card itself, the whole card was just awesome. But like I said, 2 weeks ago that happened now, so wish I was able to talk about it last week. Sorry it didn't happen, but we've discussed it now, and that's been and gone. Now, there was some fighting over the weekend, and the essence of the episode today, I'll touch on the Bellator card a little bit, and then I really want to just sort of dive deep into the whole Conor McGregor, Ariel Helwani interview, because I think there are a lot of points, and especially for me, as you know, I'm a massive Conor McGregor dick rider, so you know, I think that you know, there were so many things there that just sort of sparked a little bit of flame back in me from the feelings that I had when he was active and fighting in the UFC. So I'd love to get into that, but you know, just quickly on the Bellator card, Bellator 225 happened over the weekend, and to put it I guess simply, it was the most violent night in MMA history. And let me just bring up some stats here. Now this is from MMA Fighting, and here it is. So there was 14 fights in total. Every single fight was a finish. So none of them went to the distance. There were 7 knockouts, 7 submissions, 9 first-round stoppages, 3 second-round stoppages, 2 third-round stoppages, 4 fights that lasted less than 2 minutes, and the fastest submission in Bellator history. That was from a gentleman by the name of Aviv Gonzalez, who all he did was just come out and did an umami roll and submitted him in 11 seconds. Now, every time I say umami roll, it makes me feel like sushi. Umami rolls sound absolutely delicious. I imagine that an umami roll would have a little bit of salmon, a little bit of wasabi in the middle as well, maybe a slight cucumber. Don't know, but it always makes me feel like I want to have a sushi. But yeah, fastest submission in Bellator history, and it was a submission. If you can go and check it out, it's been circulating all over Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. So I recommend everybody go and check that out. But most notably, the two things to take away from that whole card was Nick Newell. Nick Newell getting the victory. He submitted the fighter that he took on. Now, I don't remember the gentleman's name, which is bad on my behalf, but he did get a rear naked choke victory. Then you got Mr. Paige Van Zandt, Austin Vanderford, winning. Oh, geez, that was a bloody mess, that one. The canvas was basically just turned into red. And then you had the main event, which was the main event. How can I forget what the main event name? So it was the rematch. So Sergey Kharitonov against Matt Mitrione. And Matt Mitrione was complaining it had something to do with his mouthpiece, or that was the reason why he got knocked out. And look, it sounds to me like he was making up a little bit of excuses there. But this is a rematch from the first fight where Mitrione blasted Kharitonov in the dick. He basically exploded his dick, and the fight had to get called there. But next fight comes in, which happened over the weekend. Matt Mitrione got knocked out. So where does Matt Mitrione go from here? Man, he's the money's still there. He's still got a big name. The money's there for him to make. I think he's long in the tooth. I think his time is slowly coming towards an end. But I'm no one to turn around and tell anybody to retire, except for BJ Penn. Nonetheless, I don't want to see people get knocked out like this at the latter stages of their career. So, but it wasn't a really exciting fight card for Bellator. I still think there's a long way to go in terms of the way they promote their fights, the fight cards themselves, and the fighters that they have on their roster. I think there's a long way to go to catch up to the UFC and even one championship. But Bellator improving, getting much better. All right, let's dive into this whole McGregor stuff. So last week, Mr. Conor McGregor came out. So there was the news that came out that he obviously socked someone in the face for not trying some proper 12. I think the video was circulating via TMZ. He was in a pub. He was pouring shots of proper 12 to everybody. This elderly gentleman, I believe he was in his 50s, early 50s, rejected the proper 12 altogether. So Conor McGregor, with that sweet left hand, just absolutely just jabbed him. Now the guy took it like a man, and didn't press charges. But it was the sheer fact that McGregor turned around and whacked someone, whacked an elderly gentleman is. You kind of have to take a step back and be like, what's the go here? I think this is where you draw the line when you're going out and, violently hitting somebody for not having your whiskey. I think it's completely out of character. And obviously there's some issues there that he has addressed on the episode or the interview with Ariel Helwani. But most notably, there are a couple of things to take away from this. The first thing is, I haven't seen Conor McGregor talk so passionately about his fighting for such a long time. Now, the last time that I saw him speak like this was probably before the Eddie Alvarez fight where he captured the second belt. I think since then, the whole Mayweather stuff, it was a bit out of the ordinary for him. It was mainly just him taking jabs at Floyd, and then the Khabib stuff was basically him just abusing Khabib and throwing dollies through buses and whatnot. Him actually speaking passionately about fighting and the art of mixed martial arts and getting back into the octagon and how excited he is to get back into the octagon, and doesn't really care what weight, who it's up against, tune-up fight, no tune-up fight, 3 rounds, 5 rounds. I think that's the Conor McGregor that we all fell in love with. I think that's the Conor McGregor that we all want to see back. Now, if that's the exact same one that we see that comes back, it's a different story altogether. But in this interview, he said all the right things. He owned up for the issue with the old man and apologized. That again has been sorted out and resolved. I think the people that he called out. It's an extensive list. I believe in total there was 9 fighters that he called out. There was Khabib, there was Dustin, Nate, Jorge, Pettis he mentioned as well. Then he went into Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar, and Justin Gaethje. It's an extensive list. It's extensive, and all those fights will absolutely sell over 1 million pay-per-view buys. The 3 biggest ones on that, obviously the Khabib rematch. I think if he was to fight the Khabib, the winner of Khabib and Poirier in 2 weeks' time, I think that would either or. I think Khabib would sell more than Poirier, but. They're all storyline fights. These fights, I think that's number 1. Number 2, I think the rematch against Jose Aldo. I think we didn't see enough of how that fight would have panned out. You know, we saw a 13-second knockout. We saw the quickest knockout in UFC history. Was the quickest knockout in championship UFC history, I should say, because Masvidal claimed that against Ben Askren. But how would that have gone over a longer period of time? Do we see a similar outcome to the Eddie Alvarez fight where McGregor just pieces Aldo apart? Or do we see Aldo more composed and, you know, it is a lengthy back and forth battle like we saw against Nate Diaz? Do we see, and what weight is it? Is it 145, 155? 170 even. I think Jose Aldo can make 170. I mean, their cardios will be shot, but, you know, 170 will be an exciting fight to have as well. And I think the third one that interests me as well in all of that would be the Nate rematch. They're 1-1. Again, it's a big money fight. We even now with Nate getting the power or getting the superstardom, you can call it, without being attached to Conor McGregor, I think will make it equally as big as a Khabib rematch. Me personally, I really could not give 2 shits who he comes back in and fights. I just want to see him back and fight, come back in and fight. I just want to see him back in the octagon. I absolutely fell in love with McGregor for the way that he would go about his business. He would talk his talk. It wasn't completely abusive, and it wasn't racial, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't filled with so much hatred. It was just trash talk. You know, he would talk about, not so much about badly about the other person or about the other fighter. He would just talk about what he would do to that fighter. This fighter is like this, I will dismantle him like this, and this is how this fight will play out and finish. And then he would go into the octagon, and cool as you like, we'll go in there and finish it exactly how he predicted. You know, that's the Mystic Mac shtick, right? That's what I was. That's what I want to see back. I want to see that McGregor back. I don't want to see the McGregor that throws dollies through bus windows. That you know, brings race into it. That, you know, is drinking proper 12 at press conferences, and, you know, slurring his words, and, you know, acting up and always in the media for the wrong things. You know, I want to see him go in there, do his business, get back on the winners on the winners list, because he hasn't won a fight realistically in 2016. But I just want to see him do it for the loyal fans. You know, I would like to say that me, without being too biased, I'm ridiculously loyal Conor McGregor fan throughout all this stuff, and it's one of those things that at the moment, being a Conor McGregor fan, it's like, you know, you're a bad person if you like McGregor, and I completely disagree. You know, you don't have to agree with the things that he's done outside of the octagon, but you can absolutely appreciate what he's done in the octagon, and the things that he has done for this sport has given us, or given me personally, a reason or a passion to want to get involved with MMA media, or to get involved with MMA podcasting and start my own stuff and get the discussions going. And, you know, he lit that flame inside of me to, you know, take my love for mixed martial arts even further. So I can love and appreciate everything he's done for this sport, and I think everybody can. But I just want him to iron his stuff outside of the octagon, so that we can enjoy him inside the octagon. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, the two other things I wanted to touch on in regards to that interview. The first part was Ariel asked if we were going to see him fight again this year. He was saying they were supposed to take on Justin Gaethje in the middle. I think it was the June card or July card this year, or in the summertime. But he broke his hand. But he asked him, "Are we going to see him fight again this year?" And McGregor said yes. I'd love to see him on that New Year's Eve card, or that card closest towards New Year's Eve at Vegas. Again, against anybody. I just want to see him back, and I think getting him back in this year will be good for everybody. Good for the UFC, good for ESPN, good for Proper 12, good for everybody involved with MMA. And the last thing is, Ariel asked him, when you do return, will John Kavanagh, his longtime coach, be by his side? And he said yes. He touched on, I'll read a quote here. He said John Kavanagh hasn't watched the fight back, and McGregor was a little bit taken back. Then I got to ask him, I need a why. He has to coach me. Maybe I need a why, but look, this is all I understand. I understand that that half my commitment has led to these talks and this type of thing. So I'm just in the process of making it right, and we'll get there. But I need John. John will be in my corner, no doubt. So I know there were rumors speculating that they haven't spoken throughout that time, but they've been pictured. The SBG had just been launched, and the new Straight Blast Gym SBG had run by John Kavanagh has just been launched, and they had a launch party, and McGregor was there. So hopefully they can rekindle that relationship. I think him touching on his camp for that Khabib fight was wrong. You could see that it was wrong. And straight after the fight, John Kavanagh jumping onto Joe Rogan's podcast and talking about how they planned incorrectly, and the game plan was incorrect and was very negative minded, and we saw that in the fight. So hopefully we get McGregor back. Hopefully we get him back to the McGregor that he was. Still young. He's 31 years of age. He's still quite young for the fight game. He should be fresh. He should be ready to go. So fingers crossed we see him back. It's good to see him back. Like I said before, it gives me, as a fan, it gives me chills down my spine, because I really, really enjoy when he goes in there. Even the lead-ups, I enjoy all of that. I enjoy him getting in there and talking and strutting, and all the content that he comes up with, the Twitter rants, the photos, and everything that comes with McGregor, I absolutely love. So good to see him back, I guess, in the media. Good to see him talking to Ariel, and it's good. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we see him at the end of the year. Oh, geez, got a little bit excited there. Now, from that, let's I guess we can sort of transition into some news. Let's jump into some news. All right. So, first bit of news, One Championship. So they've got their 100th event. Jesus Christ, some CTE getting in there. That's happening in Japan in October 13th. So right after the Poirier Khabib match in Abu Dhabi. This is a historic event for them. There'll be two. They've announced the fight cards. I was hoping Martin Nguyen would get involved, but obviously he just had a fight, so it would have been awesome to see him in this fight. He deserves to be at the head of a card like this. But there's two. So the way that it works, there's two different fight cards on the same day. So there's one in the morning and there's one in the evening. So the first fight card, so the one that's happening earlier, is when we'll see the completion of the lightweight and the flyweight world Grand Prix Championship. So Eddie Alvarez will be taking on Sagid Guisen Arslanaliev in the final, and then you've got Demetrius Johnson, Monty Mouse DJ, the greatest of all time, the GOAT, Demetrius Goat Johnson, taking on Danny Kingad in the final of the flyweight world championship. And then you've got in the main event, champion versus champion at atomweight, Angela Lee defending her belt against Xiong Jing Nan. That's in the morning. That's happening, and then in the evening, part 2 they're calling it. You've got huge fight card. So you've got the featherweight kickboxing world championship, world Grand Prix championship final with Giorgio Petrosian taking on Sami Sana. You've got the flyweight Muay Thai World Championship on the line. You've got Rotang Jimwangyong taking on Walter Goncalves. Then the co-main event for that fight card is the Bantamweight World Championship. You've got Bibiano Fernandez taking on Kevin Bellanong. Now, I believe that is a rematch because I believe Bellanong lost his championship via disqualification. So there's a bad blood in that fight because it was I personally thought it was a bad stoppage, and I didn't think should have been disqualified, but it was, and Bellanong lost his title. So it's good to see there's a bit of a storyline there, so it gets exciting. Then you've got the main event. You've got Ongla Nsa taking on Brandon the Truth Vera, and that's for the light heavyweight world championship. Now, Brandon Vera is the heavyweight world champion, and he'll be going down in weight to try and capture the belt off Ongla Nsa. So really exciting fight cards there. I'm really looking forward to that. There are an abundance of championship fights on there as well. So that's a fight. That's a fighter's MMA fan's dream to watch. It's just a whole day of fighting. It's insane, and that's happening at Tokyo, Japan. So very exciting fight card there. We do have some fight announcements, and I think the most noted, there's been an abundance of fight announcements. Look, you're not coming to me to get the breaking news of when the fights are happening. I love to talk about them, but I don't think I'm the right person to get your news from. You've got your Brett Okamoto's and you've got your Ariel Helwanis that break that. That's their job. I'll let them break the news and break the fights and whatnot. So there's been an abundance of fights. You've got Jermaine Durandamy taking on Amanda Nunes. That's a big fight. But I think we'll talk about, obviously, that's happened this week. Darren Till. So Darren Till's confirmed he's moving up to middleweight to take on Kelvin Gastelum at 244 in New York. I think it's a great move for Darren Till. I think he was absolutely killing himself to get down to welterweight. Obviously, he got the 2 losses in a row, the 2 really bad knockout losses. The first one against Woodley wasn't really a knockout. He did get dropped and submitted. But the second one against Masvidal was brutal, absolutely brutal. So it's good to see him go up in weight. I'm a big believer, and you're seeing it more and more now these days. I'm a big believer of fighters that have had a couple of knockout losses in a lighter division where they are cutting an excruciating amount of weight to go up in natural weight class to a more natural weight class. Darren Till could fight at he could fight at heavyweight if he wanted to. But obviously he enjoys the cut. He enjoys coming down in weight, and we'll see him at 185. And he's got a big task ahead of him. He's taking on Kelvin Gastelum, who obviously had that war against the Israel Adesanya for the interim world championship, which he obviously edged out and lost. But it's a hard one to pick. The people I've spoken to today they've said, look, Kelvin Gastelum's going to be way too much for Darren Till, and I completely disagree. I think Darren Till is a well-rounded fighter. He's absolutely huge for any weight division, no matter where you put him. He's going to be tall. He's rangy. He's striking, and his output is ridiculous. He's a bit of a slow starter, so he tends to feint a lot in the opening round. But once Darren Till gets going, I think the only time that we didn't see him start slow was against Donald Cerrone, and he shut out Donald Cerrone really, really early. So I think that's the game plan going into a fight against Kelvin Gastelum. You need to come out early and shut him out early. Kelvin Gastelum will probably try and utilize his wrestling, but Darren Till with his leg kicks and his boxing, I think he'll be too much for Gastelum. But that's at 244. That'll be in November, Madison Square Garden. Exciting card. Frank Mir taking on Roy Nelson in a rematch. That's the headline of Bellator 231. Some big boys, some veterans going at it again. I didn't really think that we were going to see Frank Mir again, but Two big names. Two big names. I don't really know. I don't really have too much to say about it. At the end of the day, it's very much like Matt Mitrione. You know, they're all from the same era. They're all kind of cut from the same UFC cloth. And you know, what are these guys going to do? What do they want to achieve? Do they want to be world champion? You know, there has and I said this last episode 39. You know, there has to come a point in your life where you kind of make the decision. You know, I've dedicated so much time for mixed martial arts. Do I realistically see myself becoming a world champion? Once you can answer that question, if you say yes, then you know what? Go on, chase your dreams. But when you reach this age and that question remains, I'm just doing it for the money, you've already got a big name behind you. You can do other things in the sport. You become an analyst. You know, you can these days, anybody can create a podcast and, you know, you can take that wherever you go. You can have your own YouTube page. You can go and join anybody. You can. The opportunities are endless for these guys because they've done so much for the sport and they were there from the early days. I just don't think either one of these gentlemen, it's hard to say, but I don't think they're not world championship material anymore. They've been and gone. You know, Frank Mir has been a champion before. He's a champion of the UFC. Yeah, I don't think I see them moving forward being champions of Bellator. They're just in there to get a paycheck, you know. I think once their contracts are up, I think they should just right off into the sunset, and away you go. James Vick moving up to welterweight to take on Nico Price at UFC. I believe at the moment it's UFC on ESPN 19. Where's this taking place? UFC 19. Nico Price will be a tough matchup for James Vick. October 12th in Tampa, Florida. It's a good move for James Vick. I think, again, he's very much like Darren Till, and he was very big for that 155-pound division. It was very, very big. So it's good to see him go up in weight. And again, he's had a couple of big knockouts as well against him. The last one, and I completely forgot about this one. The last one against Dan. Oh my God, I'm having a mental blank. How could I forget this New Zealander? But he'll be on the fight card. Dan Hooker. I'll say that again, Dan Hooker. He got that knockout loss to Dan Hooker. So that fight card, the same fight card that Joanna Jędrzejczyk taking on Michelle Waterson, I think that's headlining as well. So I would assume that this fight would be the co-main event. I would assume, depending on whether or not they chuck anything else in there. But it's good to see him going up in weight, more fluid in the system. He'll look a lot healthier. He'll probably look a lot bigger as well. And Nico Price will be a very big test for him. Very big test. Besides that, Jesus Christ, I don't know if there's anything else interesting happening in the fight world this week. Obviously, we've got the fights this weekend, but I'll dive into them on Thursday. Back to 2 episodes a week. Don't you worry about that, my friends. Back to 2 episodes a week. Yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. I think we're going to call it quits there. That's episode 40 in the books. Good to be back. Feels good to be in a new space, in a new studio, new setup. You can't see my legs now, so you can't criticize my legs. I'm currentently wearing no pants. That's fine. But it feels good to be back. I'm really excited to see where this evolves. Looking to obviously get John Orlando, the Yank with the bank, back involved with us. It's good to be back. Good to be back. So thank you for tuning into episode 40 of Across the Cage. I've been Stefan. You've been listeners. Thank you so much. Take care. Ciao.